Live from the Washington, D.C. area, it's the Inside Scoop, Emerald Planet. All the ecology news that our viewers want to know. Now, here's your host, Executive Director of the Emerald Planet, Dr. Sam Lee Hancock.
Hello, and welcome to the Emerald Planet as we come to you from Washington, D.C. in 144 different nations, looking for those 1,000 best practices. Technologies, the services, and the products are making a difference as we move through the 21st century. And as we head towards 2050 and we add 2 billion new people to the planet, how are we going to be able to provide all the infrastructure, the food, the fuel, the fiber, everything that's needed to actually enhance and increase the quality of living and not just exist? And I have a gentleman sitting right beside me who's very involved in the city of Detroit in Michigan, the United States. And although this is one of the premier manufacturing centers for the first part of the 20th century, now it's transitioning into a high technology and even urban agriculture center, not only for the Midwest, but for the entire United States. And so Scott Ringlein is right here with me. He is the CEO of what's called the Energy Alliance Group of Michigan. And Scott, welcome to the Emerald Planet.
Hey, thanks, Sam. It's great being here, and I appreciate being invited.
Well, we're glad to have you, and it's really exciting the work you're doing. I had a chance to come out and spend about 4 days and look around the city and all the exciting things that are happening in Detroit. And it's just amazing the work is going on there, and you guys are part of this whole process.
Yes, we are.
So tell us a little bit about the Energy Alliance.
Yeah, so we're known as the Energy Alliance Group of North America. However, we have offices currently in Michigan, so we do business as the Energy Alliance Group of Michigan there, and we're actually going to be moving into the Ohio area too. Our primary focus has been PACE, the Property Assessed Clean Energy Financing. It's making a lot of formerly no's, yeses, and there's really unlimited money to do energy efficiency projects.
That's incredible. Tell us a little more about PACE. This is something that we talked about when I was out there, but let's, for our viewers here and also for the internationals, because they may like to do something like this in their own countries and their own cities.
Yeah, it's interesting because PACE is actually outside of the U.S. I believe Australia is one of the countries that uses it. Again, it stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. It really got started in California back in 2009, initially for improving residential, and then it moved into the commercial industrial side. 31 states, including District of Columbia, have adopted it, but yet only about 9 to 12 of them are actually using it for projects. What it allows the owners of buildings and properties to do is take a special tax assessment and utilize that funding to do energy efficiency upgrades that, 9 times out of 10 they're not even looking at because of cost of capital or just not able to take on that type of debt. They can then spread it over a 15 to 25 year period, and it's attached to the property itself. It's not debt. So the owner themselves, if they sell their property, that special assessment and the technologies remain with the property.
Oh, that's absolutely incredible. So it's a very easy and, in a sense, non-threatening way for property owners to really increase the efficiency, but also lower their overhead costs then.
That's correct. And I can at least speak for what's going on in Michigan. The way the risk is mitigated is, first of all, because it's a property tax, it's on the property, it's not on the owner, so they're not weighing them down with debt. The funders, which are private, their risk is mitigated because they have first lien on the property. When someone goes out of business and property is sold, the first dollar out is what? Property tax. And then we, as the developer, also guarantee the performance over the life and by statute, it has to be cash flow positive from day one. There is no payback period.
That's incredible. That's the way it should be. Well, looking at commercial and industrial businesses and also even government agencies, why should they look at energy efficiency as one of these low-hanging fruit, if you will, as far as how, again, to increase their ROI, but at the same time to decrease not only the cost of the properties and the operating overhead, but at the same time to take some of that loading off of the environment through CO2 emissions, et cetera.
Yep. So typically, most of these things are not being done because of cost of capital or access to capital. 70% of any industrial commercial building, their energy use is typically lighting, heating and cooling, and hot water. Those are your three primary low-hanging fruit. Especially with lighting, you can achieve quick paybacks, but as you move into more of the mechanical, the HVAC or your renewables, they're constrained by access to capital, but payback, especially in the the automotive industry world, we're used to paybacks of 1-2 years. Anything beyond that, fix it, make it work, and we're not going to replace it. So this gives that sector the first opportunity to truly kind of look at everything. One of our first questions when we interview a client is, do you have projects sitting on the shelf collecting dust because you couldn't get the capital or because it didn't meet your internal return on investment? 9 times out of the 10 they do, and we look at those.
You really triggered the next question, Scott, because why should you look at the entire operation as far as something like that, even though it may be an energy efficiency, reducing the overhead cost, but looking at it as in toto?
Yeah. So what we do a little bit different than most of, just say our competitors out there, we take a very holistic approach to their operation. We're not focused on any particular technology. Our choices of technologies and services that we provide are driven by the operation themselves. What are you doing? What do you need? What do you want to achieve? So with that said, when we approach them with the solution, we're not trying to push a particular technology on them. What we want to do is we want to look at everything they do within that operation, including non-energy things like tax structure. For instance, when we tear out all of the old lighting or old HVAC, you can get a tax credit. It's called an abandonment tax credit for all that asset. It still has a value, and most don't take advantage of it.
Yeah, most people wouldn't even know that there's value to it because they're looking at it as a pure cost, or it's already been expensed on the tax
books
record.
That's right. They've already depreciated. Most people, they pull up the large green trash bin and they throw it all away. It has value, and we're talking about even when we get into windows or the outside of the building itself. If we're pulling out wiring or siding, it has an asset value still, and you can get a tax credit for it.
So looking at when you go into, whether it's large to small operation, do you have assessors that go in and do the evaluation, and then that's when you present it to top management, or is it something that you present the concept and then you go in and do the assessment?
Excellent question. So I'm an engineer by trade, Sam. I'm all about processes and procedures. So we follow it pretty closely. First meeting is really kind of, this is what we do, let's get to know you, is it something you want to move forward with? Second meeting, that's when we have a 15-page questionnaire. We take what we call our deep dive walkthrough, and based on that is when we actually put a formal proposal together that says, this is what we're going to do for you in regards to your operations or maybe the service side of things.
So looking at renewable energy, because I know you're looking at everything besides just the energy aspects of that, but looking at renewable energy, and you say you're really ecumenical, I'm going to use that term, as far as the various technologies. What would be some of the key things, though, that you would look at that you have more immediate return on investment than other things? Because I know when you're looking at a house, insulating of the attic is usually number one, and then insulating the hot water pipes versus just replacing windows.
Right,
that kind of
right.
concept. What do you do in commercial, industrial, or even a governmental facility?
Yeah. So the first thing we tell them is if they come to us and they say, we want solar, we'll ask why. And we'll also ask them, what else have you done? Because kind of our motto is reduce, use first, then produce. We want them to focus on the low-hanging fruit first. That way, like lighting, we can reduce maybe their utility costs by 50%. Well, if I'm going to power that with solar, I'd rather reduce it by 50% first and then reduce the size of the solar system by 50%.
Of course, yeah.
It's a lot more economical, but there's a lot of people out there, they just run to the renewables. So we focus on, as a holistic approach, we'll look at whether it's CHP, solar, or geothermal, but it's also going to include everything else that's within their facility. Let's get the net down first, then we'll apply the renewables.
I think you mentioned this, Scott, but I know this is something I really want to hone in on because most people forget this. You know, the most efficient way of doing it, the most economical, is every kilowatt that you don't use. And many people forget that. It's just like using the renewables and all that, and they're scaling up to the current use. So when you're advising about how would you go in and advise someone that they can do things immediately, I mean, before they even start replacing, say, the lighting and other things, what kinds of ideas that would really be helpful to people?
Yeah, so some of the things that are involved in our questionnaire is, what are you doing with your staff? It's interesting because one of my colleagues and I were talking today, and statistically 80% of industrial commercial operations have no energy manager, no energy teams. They're not looking actively for waste.
So they're just writing checks, and it just every month it just keeps going out. It's in the budget, so they
treat it as an expense. We look at it, it's an investment. It's capital, you're investing, and when we do our analysis, we look at it as a 20-year period, and we look at not only just the energy efficiency, but we're looking at the reduction of maintenance, and our life cycle includes end-of-life
Scott,
replacement.
we got a quick question. 10 or 15 second answer. What do you see for the growth of your organization next 5, 10, 15 years?
Oh my gosh, only up. With PACE, we have access to cash, and we have 20-year financing terms.
So you just see it's bigger, better, brighter, and away you go.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Congratulations. So this is Scott Ringlein. He is CEO of Energy Alliance Group of Michigan out of Detroit. And thank you for being with us as we look at this very interesting concept of how to actually reduce the cost and to increase the bottom line as well as profitability organizations that create the Emerald Planet.